Welcome to the Personal Brand Era podcast. I'm your host, Ella Ray, and I'm excited to talk to Corrie Woods today. She's a certified life coach, a wealth mindset specialist, and an entrepreneur. Hey, Corrie, how are you doing?
Hi, that was a beautiful introduction. Thank you.
I would love to know what motivated you to get into life coaching, and have you ever thought about any other niche within coaching while finding your path?
Yeah, there's life coaching is so interesting because when I signed up and when I started my business, I had no idea that it would actually take me through many different niches. And it would take me just my own personal growth journey in kind of finding, just where do I land and where do I fit? I mean, the whole thing started because I was watching way too many women suffer in shame. There's like a whole story behind that, but it was one of those things that felt very God directed, where it was time to just start helping these women come home to themselves, to find themselves again. I was in the throes of motherhood myself, and I'm pretty sure that's what triggered it. I had 5 kids in 7 years,
Wow.
and yeah, I mean, it's still crazy. They're a little older, but at the time, having 5 kids under 7 and being a stay-at-home mom, there's a lot that you forget about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you get thrown in the woes of motherhood and then lots of little kids at the same time. So yeah, it's kind of what sparked me to become a life coach. And I want to add this one piece. I had already started, what was it that I was doing? I had already started therapy, and the modalities that I had learned in therapy were not what I was looking for. And when I found life coaching, it was more of what resonated with me at the time. And so that's kind of like I just kind of shift. And so I'd experienced life coaching and then decided to become one.
I can totally relate. I have 2 kids myself. The oldest is 12 now, the other one is 7. So grown out of the little ages, but I can totally relate. And my listeners as well, mostly moms, right? Female coaches who listen to this podcast or watch this podcast, they can absolutely relate how you can forget yourself when you bring up kids, and how that can be a real challenge also to balance those two, right? The business and also raising the kids in a proper way and not neglect them in any
Right.
way.
Absolutely.
And how do you approach coaching people? Do you have any specialty or any particular program that you take people through to get them what they want? And what kind of pillars do you work usually with people?
So that I want to answer that in like a little bit two parts, because there can be many layers to that question, and I really appreciate it. But essentially, what I do is I help women and men. Actually, I don't really have a specific gender like in who I help, but what I realized very quickly as a life coach is that we're all being coached on the same thing anyways. Like we're all people are wanting to come to me and they want to hire me because they want to make more money. And so I don't really call myself a money coach anymore, but there's so much trauma around money. So it's easy to talk about money. But when we talk about money, all we're doing is working on the beliefs that you have about yourself. So essentially, when people find me, it's they I consider myself more of a general coach now if I were to put a label on it, but they hire me for marriage counseling, for parenting issues, for business growth, for money. Like I'm getting hired for different results, but we're all coaching on who they believe they are, because you cannot outgrow your self-concept of you, right?
Mm.
So a lot of the people coming to me who want help have already started some type of journey, and they're working on themselves. They already know how to take care of themselves. They have an established business, but they're hitting walls and they're hitting blocks. And most of the time it's because they can't outgrow who they think they are at a subconscious level.
And how do you approach someone who has a very deep and firm belief about themselves? For example, that money is evil, for example, if we take that example, or
Right.
that because of a traumatic relationship in the past, they will never be able to have another healthy relationship with anyone else. How do you take someone from such a
Right.
stuck belief into releasing that belief and kind of allowing
Yeah.
themselves to even imagine something remotely healthy?
Right. I want to first start by saying I'm very intuitive what I do. So I don't have a step-by-step program. My client is actually my program, but I do
Mm.
have a set of things that I generally help them with because I teach them tools, right? Tools along with the coaching. But when someone says, if I were to use your example, if someone came to me and they had this deep rooted belief that money is evil, again, money is just, it's a reflection of who you think you are. So when someone says money is evil, on some level, I know what they're saying is that I don't think I'm a good person,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Money is just like reflecting their thoughts about money is essentially just reflecting back to them the way they think about themselves. So if they have relationship problems, I mean, really, I was thinking as you were asking that question, really what I do is I help people heal the relationship with themselves. So that's what I should tell people I do because we're always coming back to the person. It's just money is just a reflection tool. And when you can heal your relationship with money, you are simultaneously healing your relationship with yourself because money is just an extension of the psyche. It's just an extension of who you think you are. Not who you are, but who you think you are.
And that would apply also not only to money, but if I take that concept, it would apply to pretty much everything, like the table in front of me. But that's like a very basic one. The
Right.
perceptions that we grow into having during
Right.
our upbringing, school, and all that stuff that teaches us a certain way to look at things will ultimately result in a view of things, and that will reflect back on us if we think money is evil, or
Yeah.
the glass is half full instead of half empty, right? All those
Mhm.
things, all those concepts, or even towards certain foods, right? This food is evil, this food is healthy, right? All these things. We are being taught these things. And I can imagine that it is a process to release those things from your
Absolutely.
mind. And what is the process that you would normally take someone through if, let's take the relationship example for this question.
Okay, let's do it. You mean your relationship with money?
No, the relationship with, let's say, someone had a very traumatic relationship before, and now let's say it's a woman, and she now believes that because of that experience, maybe it was not only one, but multiple ones, and now she believes she's kind of in a pattern of believing, oh, this will continue, so I better
Right.
stop. I don't want anything to do with relationships whatsoever. So how do you kind of break that cycle?
Such a good question. And part of my story, by the way, is that I went through a divorce last year. So I have already had to take myself through this. Now that I'm in a dating world in my 40s with 5 kids, it's a whole nother experience than dating in my 20s with no kids. So, so if we were to look at relationships, and let me just kind of sit with that question for a second, because relationships, they're not there to complete us. Relationships, again, are just mirrors. They're mirrors where I like to think of healthy relationships as two people who believe and feel that they are whole and they're coming together to help each other become the best version of themselves. And so if there is a pattern, let's just say, because I learned this for myself, okay? um, when I am in a relationship or when I started dating again, I started noticing certain things. Like there was a pattern of a type of man that was coming to me. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting. And I was very curious. Okay, so part of what I help my clients with, just so you know, is I teach them that they have to stop judging themselves in the process of learning. So I could have said, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Why are all these guys doing this? They're so narcissists. And I could have sat there and complained and whined about it. But instead, I looked at, okay, why am I attracting this type of man? Why is this type of person coming into my life? There's got to be something here. And so I sat back and looked, okay? I just kind of sat back and explored. And I do a lot. One of the techniques I teach my clients to is I call it God writing, where you just allow God to move through you. Now, whatever, if you believe in spirit, Heavenly Father, source, you can call it, replace it with whatever spiritual language that you use. But I sat back and I journaled and I looked at what it was within me that was causing this type of man that was, air quotes, like really narcissistic coming towards me. So some of that was just triggering. I had to look at, okay, what is it about my belief system? Because who am I? Who do I believe that I am? And so as I sat down and I kind of paid attention, I wrote it out. I started looking at like my patterns of response. I started looking at like, how am I showing up in the relationship? What am I expecting? Who am I being while this man, is showing interest in me? So a lot of times I teach my clients just how to be curious, how to be an observer of their thinking, how to recognize patterns, the way that they respond to other people. This is all part of, air quote, my program. It's not really a program, but it's just, these are some of the skills that they have to learn for themselves. They have to learn how to be aware of their thinking. They have to learn how to be aware of their emotional response. They have to learn to take complete accountability for what it is that they're creating, because they are the creators of the reality. If they are bringing these people towards them, they are creating that intentionally. And I teach them how to take ownership for what it is that they're creating. They have to, or they're never going to heal the patterns within relationships. And so I kind of went off a little bit of a tangent there. But these are just some of the skills that people have to learn within relationships. Is like, you have to be able to identify your abandonment wounds. You have to be able to identify, like, what are you afraid of in relationships, and learn your part in who you are and who you're being in those situations. Does that make sense? I went off on a tangent there.
That makes absolutely sense, especially the last part. I love that you have to take responsibility for what you are actually putting out into the world.
Right.
Because nowadays, maybe that's the generation, not sure, that young women tend to think it's not their fault, right? I'm amazing,
Right.
I'm a queen, and I'm
Right.
ready and I'm complete, and if the man is not able to fulfill me completely, I'm kind of disappointed and I throw him away, right? That's kind of the general vibe that I get from many young women that are coming across as a bit of entitled, even to a man that has to come at them perfect, even though they are not perfect, not by any means or standards, right? Because nobody is. And I feel this is crucially important and helped me personally in my life tremendously to make that shift from blaming into taking responsibility, even if it hurts to the core. It breaks every bone in your body to take the responsibility for the things that have happened in your life. But once you do that, actually, you can forgive yourself. I think you have to break every bone in your body in order to be able to forgive yourself and maybe the person that did whatever they did, right? But you cannot move on. I believe you cannot really have a healthy relationship in the future if you don't become a new person, if you don't kind of reshape yourself, throw away that skin, that old skin that you have been carrying with you, right? You have to transform, right?
No, I want to add to that because I'm very grateful that you mentioned that, because one of the tools, like the key tool, again, if I were to go back to the concept of, like, you can't outgrow who you think you are, right? So you have to learn also how to forgive who you thought you were. Like, you have to learn how to not just forgive other people, because it's actually not about forgiving other people. It's forgiveness mostly is about you. Forgiving how you feel, how you responded, the way that you thought, and most importantly, the judgments that you had on yourself because of who you were being in the relationship. And I remember, like, and then sorry, I want to make sure I want to touch on forgiveness, because that's the biggest tool that I use in my practice. Is I teach them a self-forgiveness practice, and then they have to deep dive into their self-forgiveness and the judgments that come with it. And essentially what we work towards is we create an I am statement or a document. We have to let go of the lies in order to replace truths. So when you are healing your relationship with yourself, it's you're forgiving yourself of the lies that you believe that started in childhood, right? Like, none of my beliefs about me came as an adult. They most likely were developed and decided as a child. And so I remember, can I share a quick story about this experience? So I remember when I was doing this work on myself, I remember that not only, okay, hold on, let me see, how do I want to start this? Okay, I experienced a lot of abuse when I was a child. And so I created a belief about myself that it's normal to be used by men. And so what that did, so as a child, and when it settles into your unconscious way of being, you start making it true. And so what I was doing is I was attracting men because I felt like on a somatic level, on a body level, that it was normal. If I wasn't being used, my nervous system was wired to feel used by men. So what I had to do, and this is where forgiveness comes in somatic work, is I had to teach my nervous system how to feel normal when I wasn't being used by a man. But that, like you said, was hella painful. And it's like, you're, like you said, it's like you're inside, it feels like you're being broken down and torn apart, because it's such an internal game at this point. Because you cannot change the beliefs about yourself without getting your nervous system on board, and your body has to be in conjunction with your brain.
And this is where I feel it is not enough what I get from the coaching space, especially where they talk only about mindset. I hear that so much, it makes me almost angry, because mindset is only up here in the brain.
Right.
But what about the emotions? Just what you said, you cannot just address the brain, and Western civilization in general is so focused on the brain. They dismiss everything that is below the head. This is
Right.
my impression coming from Asia, where they have a different kind of approach to humans, to medicine and all that stuff. The emotions that you produce need to be addressed on a completely different level that has nothing to do with mindset. And I call that heart set, because
Ooh, I love that.
you need to kind of create the types
Yeah.
of emotions that you want to feel. And the example that you described is, I can relate so much, where you feel safe being abused. You develop a feeling of feeling safe
Right.
with that type of treatment, so that whenever anything else occurs, it is either boring or dangerous. You feel as if it is dangerous to you, because it's not the thing that you know the most and the best, because you
Right.
already know how to cope with that one. You already know, and you even if you suffer, and even if you have a lot of pain, you know how to handle it, right? Even though it breaks you down, and it is painful as hell.
Right.
But as it's difficult to actually shift your emotions and produce the right types of emotions to actually allow the other things to happen, the healthy relationship, right? The healthy types of people to come into your life, and to observe yourself, to allow yourself to feel safe, and to heal actually from all that trauma and pain and abuse. And so you cannot think your way into it. You have to feel
Absolutely.
your way into it. At least that's my experience, how I tried to get out of it, right? It
Right.
was the only way, because I'm a very brainy person. I can think through the depth of the sea. But that didn't help me at all.
Yeah.
I had to really, and that was painful also, to relive that, and to allow myself to also develop a safe space and a safe feeling even. with people who are actually healthy and to recognize what is healthy. I didn't know what is healthy. I needed is to train myself, my thinking into recognizing healthy people.
Yeah.
So that I could not attract the wrong people anymore, but recognize them. And the most surprising thing is, once you do that, you only attract the most amazing people. You
I
don't,
know.
it's like a new dimension that you enter, right?
And it's surprising, like you said, because when I've lived 40 years in one way, right? Like you said, I started off as a mindset coach because that's what most coaching teaches, right? How to change your thoughts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not actually about your thoughts. Like you said, it's definitely a different approach when you use like somatic work with your clients. It's incredible, and it's powerful when you know how to use your body. And from my experience, I like to describe like your body is actually your intuition. It's emotionally intelligent and you can speak to it. And so a lot of the times when my clients come to me, they're like you, they're so used to using their mind to solve the problem. And I say, let's drop into your body and see what your heart has to say, or wherever they're feeling the emotion, because we carry emotional experiences in different ways. And so a lot of times I have to walk my clients through acknowledging their emotional felt experience of their body wherever it's existing, and have them really connect to those parts of your body, because there's messages and there's truth, and it's never what we think it is. You know, our brain is always trying to solve for why we feel the way that we feel. But guess what? When you drop out of your head and you drop into your body, the messages change. The truths become clear. And it's actually a very beautiful experience to witness in my clients, where they can get out of their head and drop into their heart.
And we can even connect that to most of my clients and listeners are moms. So whenever we know that we have been treated in a way when we were growing up, our emotions have not been met in a way that was healthy, right? I at least was not. So I had a long path of learning emotional intelligence, so to speak, right? So as moms are listening to this, it is also very important for them to know how to meet their children's emotions in a way that would not hurt their integrity, and tell them your emotions are invalid, right?
Yeah.
So, and that bleeds into parenting, which you also do, right?
Yes.
So from our own relationships, once we kind of heal ourselves and the relationship we have with ourselves, we have an open space to actually deal with the things that we experience as parents, because that pattern is not broken all of a sudden just because you have a baby and you love it so much. No, your evil patterns will re-emerge, right? And you will meet your evil self, right? Your best self, but also your evil self. Right? And you need to be able to handle that. And I see and hear a lot how mothers are struggling with that, especially when the kids are young, right? When they start walking, they start doing things you don't want them to do, you know, exploring the world. So they need to be they need to have tools to meet the emotional world of a child that is very wild, right? Out of order, boundaryless, right? Which we as adults have already learned, right? If something hurts, we can even be still, right? We don't have to cry.
Yeah.
But the child doesn't know. It is boundaryless. So we need to learn how to deal with that. And what are the strategies that you apply to someone who comes maybe with that particular problem as a mom?
That's usually the easiest one. When I say it's never easy, let me rephrase that.
A mom of 5 is talking.
I know, right?
It's easy by now.
I know. No, it's, you know, it's so funny because my oldest is 13, so I understand what phase you're in. My kids are between 6 and 13 right now. But what I have learned and what I realized and what I help my clients with as well, that you have to learn to, like, you have to be okay with your emotional experience, right? So when your kids are breaking down, it's like, do you know how to be present? Are you able to just kind of be with them as they have their emotional experience? Too many times us as mothers, we get attached to the way that our children are feeling. I'm like, the way that they're feeling has nothing to do with you, right? It has nothing to do, like, and we get nervous sometimes. I remember when I was a younger mom, like I always wanted to fix how they felt. I'm like, oh, let's make it feel better. I have 4 daughters, by the way, and I was
Oh,
laughing at myself the other day because my daughter, she was having this moment, and what I did was I was like, oh, we can go get a treat. And I saw myself, right? Like I witnessed this thing in me that's like, food will fix this, right? Which we do, right? Which we do is what chocolate will fix this. And I was like, oh shit. Oh, sorry, I cussed. I said, I'm teaching her like that food is going to fix how you feel. And I just saw it. I didn't beat myself up for it. No, and nor am I going to like judge myself or like, oh, I'm not worried, right? But it was just important to notice like, next time, maybe I'll just 2 things that I do. There's power in agreeing. So when my kids are having breakdowns, I agree with how they feel. And the second thing that I do is I just let them have their experience. I ask them what they need. Do you want me to be with you? Do you need some time by yourself? Most of the time, depending on their ages, they're not going to be able to know always what they need. So that's where I just fall under just that whole rule, like that there's power in agreeing. So when they're telling me that they're sad, I'm like, yeah, I would be sad too. They're like, well, I'm mad. Yeah, I'd be mad too. My friend was mean to me. Yeah, of course she was mean to you. Like, I'm not here to change them, but just be present with them, because my nervous system for a long time was very, very hardwired to like be hyper vigilant about everyone else's emotions. So I was like jumping, right? So every time they were having like a bad experience, I'd jump. And so I'd have to just kind of like teach myself, we don't jump. There's no need, we breathe, right? There's a power in pausing is what I would tell myself. Like it was kind of a step. Like I first had to learn to pause, and then I had to learn to just be with the experience and then agreeing with them, even if I disagreed. I'm like, yeah, totally.
I love that. It totally reminds me of the clash that I had with my mom when I first had my son, because
Uh-huh.
she is the type of generation. Maybe that's the generational thing. I don't know. Maybe it's the cultural thing. Not sure where it came from, but she was always trying to. Just like you described, to shut the baby down whenever it was crying, give the
Right.
pacifier, feed, or anything in the mouth, right? Just shut down, right? Not because she didn't want to be disturbed, but because I think she learned that the kid is crying because it needs something, which is
Right.
right. But to kind of shut the mouth down immediately without kind of knowing what it really is, we kind of really clashed, because
Yeah.
I wanted to do it in a different way. I wanted to really
Right.
listen in. I wanted to find out what's the problem. And obviously, I will not know because I'm a new mom, you know. I need to listen a lot to
Right.
eventually understand. And that's what she couldn't bear, because it was so painful for her to
Right.
hear a baby's cry. And maybe she never did that. Like she had 3 daughters, like we were not easy on her. And
Yeah.
we
You
cried
never
a
are.
lot. Mm-hmm. So that was her go-to thing,
Yeah.
maybe to solve that problem. But actually, I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted to listen in. I wanted to find out what's the language, to really learn the language, because all
Right.
cries are different. And that's the thing that is the most crucial, that you kind of need to lean into what you just described. You need to
Right.
lean into their emotions and to let it go for a bit. I mean, there's no harm in listening, right? There's no
Right.
harm in pausing. There's no harm in learning and giving them the
Right.
space, because again, it's not really about you. And I used to get triggered a lot when I was
Yeah.
a new mom, just like you, right? I think
Right.
every mom goes through that,
Yeah.
until we eventually learn how to actually be relaxed. And on the other hand, also in the moment where your kid is so explosive, let's say, or is sad, they need a rock. They don't need another sad person or
Right.
someone who is aggressive about it. They need a rock. They need someone safe that they can lean on, that would hug them, that would be there, that would listen, right? So that type of thinking really helped me to turn my own things around and to really solve problems in a better way and not in the way that I was brought up, because I really was fighting with that a lot as a young kid.
Yeah, me too, girl. I had two sisters as well. So my four
Hey.
daughters, they don't realize how lucky they are to have that many sisters. But right now, I'm going to have four teenagers in high school at once.
Oh
That's
my God.
fun.
And how's that boy doing?
I know. He hates that I say this, but he's totally the calm before my storm because he's the oldest, right?
Oh,
Um, yeah, he's great. Like he really is like the calm in our family. I kind of joke around that we have way too many chiefs and not enough Indians in our house, but and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But when you are, like you said, when like as a parent, some of these skills you have to just learn through the experience. Like you have to just practice. They don't come natural. And I actually agree with you that I think generationally speaking, our parents didn't have access to the mental health in the way that we do as parents today. And so they were going off of everything that they learned where children were meant to be seen and not to be heard, right? Like
mm.
there's a lot of that generationally that I had to break as a parent, because kids coming to this earth this time, they are insane and they are smart and they're intelligent, they're emotional, they're capable. They're nothing like I was when I was little. I'm like, oh my gosh, we are dealing with a whole new generation of souls. That's what it feels like to me, at least.
Totally. I feel the same way. Do you have any fitness routine that you incorporate into your life to manage and balance all of this?
Yes, I do. I was a college athlete, so it's very easy for me to stay active. I don't know if it's because I was a college athlete, but I only know it's my sanity. I if I That's another thing that I help my clients understand is that the foundation that you set yourself, emotional, spiritual, mental, physical, you have to create that foundation for you every single day. It's like you have to commit to taking care of yourself in those four ways, very intentional, because it's setting a foundation for everything that you do. Because a lot of the people that come to me, I mean, they are coaches, they're healers, they're mentors, they're leaders, uh, they're business owners. And so they have to know how to take care of themselves so they're not going to be able to take care of the people that they love in the way that they can, you know?
And one thing that comes into play of developing these four areas, and we talked a little bit about that before, is identity. What I see in my clients oftentimes is that it is very difficult for them to shift from one identity into another one. Basically, the sentence of who you want to become, who you are now,
Right.
and who you want to become. So, what does that road or process look like if you try to and this is different from mindset, right? Mindsets are like beliefs and structures that you have in your brain about certain things. But identity is really who you are, or who you at least believe you are. So, how
Right.
does that play into all of it? And how can we unbind identity to be something firm, stiff, and unchangeable? How can we change it?
Ah, it's like the $1 million question.
Mm,
It really is. And I want to start off by just kind of giving some just explanation to how the brain works. Um, Only because between the ages of 0 and 14, now I learned this somewhere, and so give and take a few numbers, right? But between the ages of 0 and 14, 85% of who you think you are was already decided. So as a child, your brain is just hardwired to look outside of you to make decisions about who you are. So when you're a child, right? I'm not lovable. I'm not kind. I'm this. I'm hated. People don't like me. I have, all the rooted problems, right? Um, they when we make those decisions as children, they settle into our unconscious way of being. And so we start living our lives and we start playing out these beliefs about ourselves. So when you so essentially, like, some of being able to change that is understanding, okay, that this is a lie. You've been believing a lie, and you have to take responsibility for the choices that you made because of the lie, right? So, and I can give like super examples. Like, one of my biggest lies that I told myself was that I can't have what I want. So if I subconsciously was making decisions from that place, I was sabotaging my business. I was sabotaging relationships. I wasn't able to, like, I was living from this very limited way of believing. And for me to be able to heal that lie, I had to also learn, okay, but what is actually true? So I had to forgive myself. I had to look at all the judgments that I had on myself because of that lie. So you have an unconscious or a subconscious belief, is what I like to call them. It's like a rooted belief. So I can't have what I want was like the root of my problems. And then the branches were, I'm a terrible mom. I'm not a good business owner. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll never be able to, graduate X, Y, and Z. Like, I have all the excuses. Part of my behavior from believing I can't have what I want is I would blame other people. Part of my behavior was making other people responsible for my own suffering. So I had to learn to acknowledge, like, and take full responsibility that I was doing that. I was doing that. And I had to look at myself in the mirror and I had to own the shit out of it. And until I did, I was never able to heal it. I could not change it because part of like what I call like healing, I don't know, it's radical. People call it radical responsibility, but I sat myself in front of a mirror and I cried and cried for hours one day. And I just apologized for how mean I was to myself, how mean I was to other people. I looked at myself in the eye and I found there were times I couldn't even look at myself. I couldn't even say, I love you, Corrie, because that lie was so strong. I believed that I wasn't lovable and that people loved me for what I was doing and not for who I was or who I am. I couldn't even like tell myself that I loved myself because I was so embedded in the belief that people didn't love me for who I was. And so forgiveness, to answer your question, is forgiveness. And then I use somatic work to process the emotion of the belief. And then I replace it with a truth. That, in its simplest way, I would process it through my body. I use yoga, walking, scream therapy, meditation, prayer, journal writing, singing, dancing, like you name it. There's a million different somatic ways that you can process emotions through. And that's part of what I help my clients do as well, is that they intuitively know what to do. They have to just learn to trust the process, because not everyone is going to process their emotions in the same way. So it's learning, okay, what does your body need? Some people need sleep, right? Like hours of sleep. And I'm like, go get sleep. I don't know how many times in the middle of a coaching call, I would ask my client and said, okay, what does your body need after we've processed, right? I just need a nap. Go take a nap. What? No, I have to work with you. And I'm like, no, you'll come back. You have to teach your body that you can trust it. So go take a nap. And how many moms, right? They're like, I can't, I have this to do. And I'm like, no. You have to teach yourself that you can be trusted. So when your body says you need a nap, you go take a nap. When your body says, I need to go for a run, you go for a run. When your body says, I need water, you go drink water. So it's developing trust in themselves and then identifying a truth that their body believes. So I don't believe in positive affirmations because they only work when you're in a good mood. That's why. So as soon as you've processed the emotion, you've acknowledged the lie, then you replace it with a truth that your body believes. And I help my clients learn how to, like, because semantically, sometimes it's just trying to find the right words that resonate with you.
I totally love that. And that resonates with me because I learned a concept to do for myself in my life to get over all of this.
Right.
The concept of, you could call it rest and flow, because
Yes.
things only can grow if I adapt this analogy from nature, right? I love
Right.
gardening and all that stuff, and seeing things grow brings me utter joy. So when we compare that to a flower, right? A flower can only grow when she has rest during the night, right? And when she has flow. What does flow mean? Flow
Right.
generally is some type of movement, right? So anything that is still is damned to die. So the flower needs flow of water, flow of nutrients, flow of sunlight from above, flow of wind, and all the things that kind of surround her in order to grow. So if we
Right.
as human beings want to grow and change our identity that we believe we have right now into, let's say, I want to be a millionaire, if it's a money cause, right, or a money goal, or I want to be a better mom, for example, or I want to be a better partner, that is kind of growing your old identity into a new identity. You kind of have to, first of all, rest from all the trauma, kind of digest all the trauma that you have properly. Yep. And then you have to flow, because without the flow, nothing new can grow. And I think it's very beautiful what you just described. The things and the tools that you use all encompass movement, like singing, dancing, yoga, even taking a walk, right? You need your body fluids literally to move in order to kind of transform your old identity into a new one.
Totally.
And that helps me so much every time when I get stuck. I know exactly I'm at too much rest. This is kind of unhealthy rest. It's not really rejuvenating me, but it's kind of feeling stuck. I know I have to move in some way, whether it's mental movement, if I know I'm mentally stuck, so I have to move my mental space. If I know I'm emotionally stuck, I need to move my emotions. So I go out and I experience new things, so I feel a different way. So that helps me to get unstuck, and then I can develop goals towards whatever I want, and then I can, so to speak, manifest it. It's not really manifesting, but it's changing your energy, changing your frequency, so to speak, to get into a different dimension. If I were to express it in a woo-woo way, right?
I know, right?
But it's the flow that is the crucial part that I see many people don't do. They do process it mentally. They do the affirmations that I personally don't believe in as well, because it's only mental. It's not really emotional. Unless you digest them emotionally, you let go of them emotionally, then it can all definitely help.
Yeah.
But the movement and the flow part, I feel, is the crucial one to actually change things. And that's where the rapid transformation can take place.
Absolutely.
The fast change that people also oftentimes don't believe. They think, oh, to become a millionaire, I need 10 years. Or to become a better mom, I need 10 years or 5 years. Or I will get that done next year when my kid is out of puberty. No, you can actually be a better mom right now.
Yeah.
If you let things flow, if you flow yourself, if you just put on a song that you enjoy and you just dance with your kid. If you have an argument and you can talk about it, you can dance about it, you can sing about it, you can do all kinds of movement things, you know?
Right. No, I can just want to say thank you for saying that, because movement is what our body needs to heal. Like, it really does. There's a lot of scientific evidence that we could probably talk for hours about that, but there is a lot of even research done on just even the hormones that get released in the body through movement, right? It's like recalibrating also your nervous system. You know, they say for kids that repetition is what calms them down. So a lot of times when my kids are like, I have a daughter who's a soccer player, so when she's having a moment, I just say, go kick a ball, because it's like this repetitive movement that just recenters them and calms their nervous system and gets them to a place where they're not in fight, flight, or freeze. And if we could, as adults, go back to learning those skills, like kids do it naturally, and they do it with less force and less fight, you know?
And what I observed about kids particularly is they have such free movement, as you say, such boundaryless experience of life that you see again when you become a parent. But then
Right,
you send them to school where they sit for 10 hours max when they are teens, right?
right.
And if we imagine what that does to them, to the flow, if for 80% of the day they just sit, and that's just the unproductive rest time that is really bad for humans, especially for boys, right? And
Yes.
I noticed that how much that changes actually ever since I become a digital nomad for 2 years now. We're traveling around, my kids play, homeschool, and all that stuff. But movement is actually so important that you need to do it 80% of your life. And 20% is should be rest. And I'm kind of walking towards that. I want to achieve that at some point
Right,
because right now it's still too much sitting for me and my kids, but I want to get there because that's the only healthy way to live and to really connect and become that being that we were meant to be.
right. Um, no, I love that. It's a good reminder. I wanted to share with you how much I wanted to share with you my document. You know how I told you that I help my clients like create a document. I call it a document. A lot of coaches do, but it's really just their I am statements because part of like this process of transformation is like when you're letting go of the lies and you're letting go of all of these limiting beliefs, it's like you have to be able to replace it with truth. Have you ever heard of the vacuum law of prosperity before?
Oh, maybe, but I
I
might
know people
recognize it.
well, it's essentially at a subconscious, it's a spiritual law of wealth creation. So wealth is just more than money. It's definitely a mindset, but it's like this idea that you have to be able to let go of things, including your thoughts. But you have to be able to, so that it can be replaced with what it is that you actually want. And so when you are processing emotions and you're learning to forgive and letting go of all of these beliefs, if you don't have truths to replace them, your brain is really good at reminding you about things that are not true, right? Your brain's like, yeah, but remember. And I just wanted to read to you I wanted to read to you my document about who I am because I'm more than a coach. I'm more than a mom. I'm
Hmm.
more than, all these titles that we give ourselves as women. Like me as who I am at the core level is our identity, right? The I am that I am exists at a subconscious level. Can I read my statement?
I love that. Yeah.
Okay, it's a little long. I'm going to read it quickly and I have it mostly memorized, but um I am God with a little g, sovereign ruler of my spirituality and physical body. I am the master creator of my reality, and my intuition is always right. I am my highest authority, and I needn't ask permission from anyone or anything to have and want all that I desire. My body is emotionally intelligent. It is strong, whole, and my felt experience reminds me of how privileged it is to have a body, and I promise to love all parts of me. My expansion knows no boundaries. Every decision I make contributes to this growth. I am that I heal through course correction, awareness of myself, and being fully in charge of the experiences I create as the one true constant in my life. My sexuality and creativity are a part of the wholeness of me and expands all that I am. My life reflects what I teach. I am a master student, and all those who I come in contact with are my greatest teachers. I am that I create the room I want to be in. I am the room. I am here for impact for generations to come. I am the protector of the divinity of women. My full expression of being a woman is what turns me on. I create space for others to live in their belief system. I celebrate them effortlessly, and the love that I have for humans allows them to heal in my presence. No problem is bigger than me. All that I create comes right on time. I am being held steady by a universal support system. I am without judgment of others, and I am without fear. Bentley, Britton, Blake, Bay, and Brooklyn are my greatest blessings. I hold the divine role of being their mother. I honor their sacred gifts and their contributions to this world, and I respect who they are. I am successful at what I do as a life coach, a spiritual leader, business owner, and a mother. I am the woman king. God chose me. I choose me.
Oh, I love the last sentence. I choose me. You almost made me cry. Oh my God.
I get teary during that part too, because I think of Moana, you know, that movie,
Yeah.
when she's like, the ocean chose me. And I'm like, and Maui, right? It's like, well, it chose wrong. And that's what we face as women, because we're taught to choose things outside of us, like go help that person is more important than you. And I'm like, no, God chose me. I choose me. I choose me every freaking time. And that's a whole mindset shift in and of itself.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Girls and women are oftentimes raised in a way that they should serve, right? To become a mother, of course, in the future.
Right.
But they missed or forgot to tell the girl that service starts at the core. And the core is always you, yourself, right? Because
Right.
you can only be an extraordinary mother if you don't forget yourself, because you need to lead your kids somewhere. And if you forget yourself, how are you able to lead anyone? Right? You need to lead yourself and those little things that know nothing about, right? The world, the evils that are out there, right? Protecting them from everything. So I think we need to shift that type of raising our daughters in a way that they should serve everything out there, but not themselves first. And it is oftentimes kind of labeled as selfish. You are selfish when you're thinking about yourself, when you're doing everything for yourself. But if you're doing the right things for yourself, it can never be selfish. It is a service to humanity, actually, if you take care of your mental health, if you take care of your emotions, if you take care of your goals and all your life circumstances, if you take responsibility, how can that be selfish? I am serving the human race by being a good human being, right?
Right.
Thank you for sharing that. It was so impactful. And I think every woman should do that, should have that type of list and be free to change that whenever you feel you change it and let it evolve.
Absolutely. And I'm currently like, I call this my document. I say this out loud every single day, and I say it out loud every time I notice myself want to contract, or I notice myself where I'm like, right? I practice feeling the emotion, and then I immediately jump into my statement, because again, these are not positive affirmations for me. This is who I am, separate of anything. Like, I truly believe that we as women need sovereignty. Like, who we are as individuals is separate of who we are in relationships with other people. You know, and that's kind of my current bridge. It's not a bridge that I'm crossing necessarily, but because I'm in this season of life, it's like, I'm sovereign and I want a relationship with, not just with a man, like to be married again, but just even with other people, like healthy relationships, and really, really learning what that means. But yeah, that's me. That's my I am statements.
I love that.
Thank you.
If anyone chooses to work with you or wants to know more about you and your work, where can they find you?
So I have a website. It's kind of being redone, so be patient, but it's Corrie Woods Coaching, and my CORRIE. So CorrieWoodsCoaching.com. You can fill out, right now I offer what I call free breakthrough sessions, because a lot of people don't understand what it's like to work with a coach. And I am a very intense coach. We get right to the meat of things. And so the breakthrough sessions are free, so you can experience what it's like to be coached, and to also have a space for you to look at you, right? And that's, not everyone is up for that. So I'm like, come to the free breakthrough sessions, and you get to experience it, and it's at no cost. There's no pressure to sign or work with me. Yeah, that's really all that you have to do, and you can decide from there what you want to do.
And I will leave all the links to my listeners in the description. So check out Corrie Woods. She's amazing.
Thank you so much. This has truly been probably my favorite conversation of the day.
Oh, thank you. And I almost forgot we were in an interview.
I know, that's how it felt. And that's my favorite kind. I will have to tell you, that's my favorite kind. I like to, every person that I talk to, I try to remind myself in the back of my head, like, what are we going to create together? Because it's fun when you can just be like, experience someone.
Yeah, I do love that the most as well. Of course, I do try to prepare as much as possible, prepare questions and all that stuff, and get the person to know before I even talk to the person. But the most beautiful thing actually appears when two people actually belong together, right? In
Right.
a in an mental and emotional space. Like I feel so connected to you. It's really weird and awesome at the same time.
I know. Me
and
too.
and like the conversation flows so beautifully and naturally. It's like the best conversations that I could create and offer to my audience.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. I completely agree. And I'm so thankful that you did this and that I happened to see your offer at the time. And I'm glad that I got to interview with you. So
Thank you so much.